Greetings, everyone. One day my curious mind discovered the concept of self-love. Immediately I thought, hey, I've got this. But then a second after, self-doubt crept in and I found myself wondering, why am I even second guessing this? But I was willing to look deeper and understand this concept. By the end of this video, you will understand the 3 elements that you have to look at when you want to understand this concept of self-love. I promise you this is not a Vanity Fair type of video, and even if it were, why not? But it's not. It's a serious video. And by the way, this is Laura H and you're watching Beyond 7, a channel I created for curious minds. If you haven't done so by now, click on the subscribe button and make sure you have the notifications on and be the first one to receive my videos. So you may ask yourself, why would I even care about this self-love thing? And I'll tell you this, because one day, sooner or later, in a way or another, all of us, and you as well, will want somebody to love you beyond everything you've ever been loved. You'll want to be in that relationship that is full of love, of friendship, of understanding, of companionship, of kindness, of appreciation. And you know what they say, unless you give that to yourself, you're not going to get that from anyone else. So why not dig deeper and understand this concept of self-love and practice it and see what happens? Before we continue, I want to set the stage. They say that love just is. Love is the opposite of judgment, and I agree with that. Now let's take 4 different types of friends that we have out there, and let's see how you relate with them. For instance, you have those friends, let's say type 1, that are just acquaintances. How do you talk to them? How do you regard them? How do you think of them? Then let's take the second type, good friends. Now, how about these? Ask yourself the same questions. How do you talk to them? How do you regard them? How do you consider them? Do you appreciate them? Do you tell them that you appreciate them? Then let's take a third type, the type of what you want to call the close best friend. Now, what kind of information do you share with these people? How do you talk to them? Do you share everything? Do you trust them more? Do you love them more? Do you allow yourself to be more, to engage more, to share more, to spend more time, trust them more than you do with the other types? And then let's take a 4th type, and let's imagine that amazing, beautiful, passionate, intimate, super fantastic relationship that you have with your partner, or at least something that you want to have. Okay, so now that we defined these 4 types, let me ask you this. How do you talk to yourself? Which type applies to your own self? In other words, are you your best friend? Because when I uncovered the self-love concept, I realized that no, definitely I don't have that super intense, fantastic, passionate amazingness view on my own person. So I immediately asked myself, but why? And then I realized I don't even have that kind of lovey-dovey kind of thing. So I settled to, okay, I think I like myself, and that was it. And I realized that the reason why I don't love myself with much more intensity or in a broader way is because, or at least was back then, because I didn't know how. So here are 3 different aspects of myself that I had to look at in order to broaden this self-love, or at least expand the concept of self-love. And the first one is my physicality. There are exercises out there that presuppose looking in the mirror and accepting what you see, and that's one big step towards accepting and loving who you are. Because yes, The opposite of love is judgment. Now, when we engage in judgment, that means we reduce that which we are. Now, when you are in this place where you accept yourself, you accept the fact that you have gray hair, you accept the fact that your eyebrows don't seem to be symmetrical, that there is belly fat that you have to deal with, that you don't necessarily have the most amazing hair, and so on and so forth. Now, when you judge your hair as to not be good enough, that means you compare it with some other model that comes from outside. And acceptance means to just look and regard yourself the way you are. Now, if you have blue eyes, you have blue eyes. If you have brown eyes, you have brown eyes. And that's what it is. Simple as that. And beyond this, you see there is no judgment. Now, this not judging thing is very difficult to do, but it's like a muscle. And once we start flexing that muscle, we can achieve great results. At least that's what they say. I've been trying for a long time to not engage in judgment, but it's very difficult. But I still made progress. Judgment in itself, what it does, it reduces who you are. And that's why judgment is considered to be at the opposite end of love, because love means acceptance, it means appreciation, it means what is. So if love is what is, then acceptance means I accept that my hair is long, I accept the shape of my face, I accept the shape of my body. As Louise Hay suggested this exercise where you look in the mirror and you start to say I love you to everything that you see. And this exercise may seem very simple, but I promise you, when I did it, it was difficult for me to pass certain levels of appreciation. I started day one, I looked in the mirror, I said, yes, I love you, I appreciate you. On day 3, I had to be honest, because those words, I love you, I love what I see in the mirror, they weren't there. So that's where your work begins, because you want to understand why is it that you can't say I love you to what you see. Big thing. So this physical part was fairly simple to approach. It's what we see in the mirror, it's easy to see, it's easy to identify. Now we also have to understand that if we compare ourselves with what we see outside of ourselves, if we accept other models of appearances as better or superior to our image, then we move away from self-love. And by moving away from self-love, you create those imbalances and discomfort, and you end up carrying this along throughout your life, and you want to ask yourself, is that what I want to do? I chose not to do that, but it's not easy to engage completely in this self-love thing. But hey, if you want to start, this is a good start. Start with the mirror exercise. The second element of self-love has to do with appreciating your mind. Then the third part of self-love has to do with appreciating your emotions. And for me, these were difficult to deal with, because I thought, okay, I've got this, but then when I looked deeper, I understood that no, I wasn't totally accepting the fact, for instance, that sometimes I was angry and sometimes I was sad. So that wasn't self-love. And self-love, if it implies no judgment, then think of it in this way. You don't judge anything. Basically, there's no judgment, even if there are parts of us that have been labeled for a long time as not good. By judging them, by attempting to reduce myself and beat myself up for the fact that, hey, I wasn't booming, blooming happy 100% of the time, which is definitely impossible if you read the concepts of happiness, you'll understand that that's not an achievable goal to be fully, completely happy all the time. So, but I was confused. I was confused with these concepts, and I thought, no, I should be super fantastic and beaming and amazingly happy and glowing, every day, 24-hour period. But that's not what it is. So when I would see myself not achieving that, when I would see myself a bit sad or going towards depression, I would beat myself up. Hey, you're not good enough because you're supposed to be happy and smile all the time. So again, I want to bring this to your awareness. Even though we go towards sadness or anger, which was my case, maybe you have different emotions that you go to. Accept the fact that you go to those emotions and love even those parts of yourself. Then there is the third part, the mental self. Now here, that was tricky as well, because let's say when you have this emotion, like at least it was my case, I would go towards depression or I would go towards anger. And each time, each emotion came with a certain thinking patterns, and of course they go hand in hand, and those thinking patterns, I would identify them. I would identify my angry thoughts, and again I would beat myself up for those. Why do you think those? Why do you speak like that about that person? Or why do you even speak like that about yourself? So those mental patterns again created a reality for me, together with the emotional self that reflected in my physical body. So all these three elements, until I worked on all these three elements, I didn't make that much progress, okay? Because again, it's not enough to just look in the mirror and like what you see. But inside, if you don't engage in the emotions of acceptance and thinking patterns of acceptance and appreciation, even of those that we label as bad, then we're definitely moving away from self-love. You've heard this message before. Unless you give yourself the love that you desire, nobody else out there will give it to you. In other words, give yourself what you ask from others. Give yourself first, and then the world will be a reflection of who you are. I truly believe this. I thought this was an interesting and important message for me to share with you. And I hope I kept my promise to uncover for you more about this concept of self-love. Again, this is Laura H. You're watching Beyond 7. Ciao for now.